You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy Ott and Paul Stone talking college basketball. Let's get to it right now. What a great Tuesday slate we have. Maybe not as much on Wednesday, but man, this Tuesday card is really good. Let's start in Omaha, where Creighton, hottest team, covering team in college hoops right now. 11 straight covers. ATS even beat that spread that moved, opened up about 1.5, went to 4.5 against Marquette. No problem for the Creighton Jays at home in downtown Omaha. This line is on the move as well. We saw 2.5, 3. It's up to 4 right now over UConn. UConn blew the lead versus St. John's. They dropped out of the top 25. Hurley's complaining about that a little bit. It's dollar beer night in downtown Omaha. It's Red Panda night tonight. So all the stars are aligned to try and beat UConn, the defending back-to-back champions, the Jays, Paul. I mean, they're a covering machine, covering their last 11.
Yeah, this is a Creighton team that's really playing good basketball right now. Jimmy, they're going for the regular season sweep. Actually, in this series, defeated UConn 68-63 in Stores just over 3 weeks ago. In that game, that victory by Creighton actually snapped UConn's 28-game home winning streak. So that was a pretty monumental victory there for the Blue Jays. And, you know, as we kind of sneak up on the month of March, you're starting to think about teams that might, you know, be able to make some noise in the tournament. In Creighton, they're quietly, playing some really good basketball, and maybe not quietly, as you mentioned. 11 straight covers. They've won 9 straight games, just a game behind league leader St. John's at the top of the Big East standings there. And I think when you talk about Creighton, you have to talk about their 7-1 big man there in the middle, who seems like he's been in Omaha for about 10 years, Ryan Kalkbrenner, just a force there, a model of consistency. Leads the team 19.2 points per game, in rebounding at 8.5 a game, and in blocks at 2.8 points per game, 2.8 blocks per game rather. So he impacts the game on multiple levels. Truly one of the best big man, if not the best in all of college basketball. And then you look at two-time defending national champion UConn, as you kind of alluded to. The Huskies have been choppy this season, to put it mildly. I think the star of the season, the highlight of the season, or maybe the low light of the season, however you look at it, has been the sideline annex of their head coach, Dan Hurley. Kind of a wild man there on the sideline, but they're just not quite the same team. Obviously, when you're the two-time defending national champion, there's nowhere to go but down, really. They, on Friday night, you know, they lose at home to St. John's, lose that game 68-62. I guess 4 days ago now. They committed in that game 22 turnovers. And it's really tough to win anywhere, even at home, when you commit that type of that number of turnovers in a league like the Big East. So I think Creighton is the hot team here, obviously. I'll take the Blue Jays, lay the 4 over UConn tonight in Omaha.
Yeah, my buddies in Omaha said that the two wild cards, look, Kalkbrenner and Ashworth have been the consistent forces, you know, the inside-outside, the 1-5, the point guard center combination, you know, with a lot of experience. But when McAndrew and Trout, when they can start knocking down shots, they are really tough to beat. Trout is up to 39% for three-point range right now. McAndrew at 34%. So those are kind of the X factors for the Creighton Blue Jays. So, and they start out kind of choppy, including, you know, the big guy Kalkbrenner. But he kind of got it back going. Remember that primetime game against Kansas? Kansas came in at number 1, and he really played Dickinson off of his feet that night. So that kind of springboarded them. They also had an injury that they had to kind of regroup a little bit. That went down, but they got things sorted out. Look, Coach Mack's a solid coach, man. They always seem to get better over the course of the year. Really good program in Omaha, Nebraska. Don't forget, over at Bet Rivers, you can earn a chance at $10,000 in bonus credits with Bet Rivers Prop Packs. Place NBA same-game parlays to collect player card prop packs and earn rewards. You win based on how your player performs. Log into BetRivers.com or the BetRivers app to place your bet and get your pack. Let's move on to the Big Ten, the Pacific Northwest, the new Big Ten. Oregon, 9 over Northwestern. Oregon has struggled 5 in a row. They have lost. Now, you thought, so they're playing at a local time, 9 a.m. tip in East Lansing on Saturday. It was a noon noon Eastern time. And they start off great. They scored 50 points of the first half. You said, man, they finally getting things going again. They looked great. They were hitting everything. And then catching all those points, winning by double digits, they lose by double digits. I mean, winning by 20, they lose by double digits, catching 9.5 or 10. You talk about a horrendous beat. But you know those bad beats. There's never been a bad beat that you couldn't have middled out of or hedged a little bit. But 24 points you scored in the second half. I think they may have found a little bit of what they've been missing, Paul, and maybe can sustain it over the course of 40 minutes this time against Northwestern. We talked about Brooks Barnheiser being hurt, how not just the second leading scorer, but leading them in assists, rebounds, and steals. And that's going to catch up, I think, with Northwestern. Look, Collins done a really good job, man. That's a blow. This was a team that, kind of had a chance, to get to the tournament and maybe make a little noise. But, when you lose a guy like that, it's going to be difficult. But this is going undermanned road trips, like we talk about. We've been paying close attention to these long road trips, these new road trips for teams like Northwestern. I'm going to take Oregon to kind of find their groove again and reverse this thing, laying the 9 at home against Northwestern.
Yeah, I definitely can't fault you for that, Jimmy. This Oregon team, though, I will say, Dana Altman's usually one of those coaches who gets the most out of his troops. But it seems like to this point, you look at the talent on the roster and maybe they've just underachieved a little bit. But from my perspective, this is as much, and you perhaps see it the same way, as a play against Northwestern as it is a play on Oregon. I mean, Northwestern had already lost Barnheiser for the year, and now just a game or two ago, they lost their third leading scorer, Jalen Leach, who averages 14.3 points per game. So they've got more than 31 points a game out the door, over 42% of their scoring. Obviously, some of those points will be replaced by the people who fill in for Barnheiser and Leach, but it won't be quite the same, and they don't just have scores, laying around everywhere there in Evanston. So I think this is a good spot to play Oregon and to expect the Ducks to defeat the Wildcats tonight by double digits.
All right, your next pick, an early game on CBS Sports Channel, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. A couple of 15 and 8 teams, BYU and West Virginia. BYU could not pull off the win at home against Arizona last time out. But West Virginia is, they were playing good on a little bit of a slide, but now at home. And, these two teams, I think it's pretty safe to say, Paul, the home and away splits are pretty distinct, with these clubs. Provo and Morgantown, tough places to play. But away from home, these teams not the same. West Virginia minus 2.5, short line here at Bet Rivers at home for the Mountaineers.
Yeah, these two teams, Jimmy, clearly hovering around the midpoint of the Big 12 this year. I think they're both at 6-6 as we come in. And West Virginia, they really got out of the gate quickly under their new first-year head coach, Darren DeVries, who came over from Drake of the Missouri Valley Conference, got off to an 11-2 start. Actually, they were 2-0 in Big 12 play, ranked 21st in the AP poll back in early January. But obviously, Darren's son, Tucker DeVries, who came, over with him to West Virginia, he only played a handful of games. I can't remember. I think maybe 6 or so games. Hasn't played, since December 6th. So I think they're starting to feel his loss. It was announced just last week that Tucker DeVries will miss the remainder of the season with that injury, which is an injury to the left shoulder. And the Mountaineers, clearly not the same team with him, but they have played well at times without DeVries, managed to win at Kansas without him, won at home against Iowa State without him. And as you mentioned, BYU, not the same team away from Provo as they are in Provo, only 2-5 on the season away from home, have already lost on the road to the likes of Providence, TCU, and Utah. I think, West Virginia is right there with those teams, if not a little bit better. Morgantown obviously can be a tough environment. I'll lay the points here, take West Virginia to defeat BYU.
All right, let's stay in the Big 12 with my next pick. And two of the hottest teams. And both teams got off to sluggish starts. Arizona, sluggish start. They've won 13 of their last 14, including that win at Provo, which was a nice win as an underdog, winning outright for about double digits in that one. 13 of their last 14. How about the biggest turnaround Division I? Paul, how many? We got 350, 360 D1 teams now. I mean, it's just the biggest turnaround in college basketball. Kansas State. Kansas State got smoked at home in the Little Apple, Manhattan, by LSU. They're like 1-8, 1-9, on their way to 2-16 in the SEC. I mean, in double digits the whole way in that game. They won 5 in a row now, so including at Iowa State by 20 or so. They went to Arizona State and Tempe and won that one by 1. But beat Kansas pretty comfortably on Saturday. And, man, Jerome Tang, all of a sudden, remember that regional final team just 2 years ago, that classic final against Florida Atlantic in Madison Square Garden? And now they're catching points at home. I got to take the Wildcats and stay with them at home. You know they're going to be fired up. That place is going to be jumping tonight. I'm taking the Wildcats +3 at home against Arizona here. Yeah,
Kansas State, it's been kind of a tale of two halves, if you will, with Kansas State to start the 2025 calendar year. Actually started this calendar year with 5 straight losses to fall to 1-6, I believe, in conference play. Now, as you mentioned, they've rebounded from that 5-game losing streak, currently on a 5-game win streak to get to 6-6. Jerome Tang, what can you say about the former Baylor assistant? Lost some players through the portal in the offseason, got off to a little bit of a slow start, but here they are playing some great basketball and, becoming a cohesive unit. Got a really good Arizona team coming into Manhattan. But I'm like you. For me, I'm taking the points or I'm on the sideline, and certainly Kansas State capable of defeating Arizona at home tonight.
Before this 5-game winning streak, they lost 9 of 10. I mean, this is a hell. I mean, this is rare, to say the least. All right, let's go to the East Coast and, actually the Midwest, but the Atlantic 10. And, Paul, you're looking at this one. St. Louis, they pulled off a couple of big upsets there for a while. Now they're at home. But George Mason here on the road catching one. You're looking at the Colonials here.
Yeah, George Mason, they hadn't been to the NCAA tournament since way back in 2011. And most of us probably remember that improbable Final Four run, which I believe was in 2006. So it's been a little bit of a lapse here between NCAA tournament bids for George Mason, but they're certainly in position. They currently lead the regular season Atlantic 10 race by 1 game over VCU after being picked to finish 6th in the preseason media poll. They currently have won 9 straight games. And when you're talking about George Mason, it all starts with their stifling defense. They rank really high in a lot of key defensive team statistical categories. They rank 2nd nationally behind only Tennessee in the opposition's field goal percentage, only allow 37% from the field by their opposition. Not surprisingly, they only allow 62 points a game and rank 7th nationally in scoring defense. So this is a defensive oriented team there for George Mason. Meanwhile, looking at St. Louis, they brought over the transfer from Loyola, Robbie Avila, who's been, he's been good. He was injured a little bit earlier in the year. St. Louis kind of been up and down like a lot of teams. They've lost 3 of their last 5 games, and that includes 1 game at home, lost to Dayton 71-63 during this current 5-game span. You look at George Mason in this particular game, getting a point. I think they should be a small favorite here. This is a team that's played solid. I think they're playing as a unit. I like George Mason to win at St. Louis, defeat the Billikens tonight in Atlantic 10 action.
Yeah, Avila, you misspoke. You said Loyola, of course, Indiana State last year. Larry Nerd. Yes, Larry Blur. So,
I'm thinking about, that guy for
another
Loyola.
Cinderella. That's all right.
Yeah, a couple of years ago when Loyola, I guess, made the tournament, they had kind of that point center who was a lot like Avila, I can't think of it. His name escapes me now. I don't know if you remember who
I'm
I'm
not
talking
sure.
about,
I'm
but
not
he was.
sure. I just know the nun. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. I went with Loyola
That's okay.
Chicago. Chicago. I meant the Sycamores of Indiana State.
Yeah, it took the whole the whole I mean, the staff, the team, and the whole bit. And I mean, that's terrible last year that Avila and them didn't get that bid. I mean, come on. I mean, made it all the way to the finals of the NIT. All right, last pick for Wednesday tonight, and then we'll get to the Wednesday projected lines. And boy, I got to tell you, I think we got a new biggest win of the season. And I thought the biggest win of the season was Chris Beard's team, and I was at the arena in Coleman Coliseum, went to Alabama and beat them on their home floor. We know how difficult it is to beat people away from home. But Florida down double digits early. Oh, here we go again. Wins by double digits. I mean, and was leading about as much as 19-20. I mean, just to put it on the Auburn Tigers. So the Auburn Tigers, all of a sudden, in a little bit of a tonight, in a little bit of a ESPN College Game Day game day sandwich. They hosted the game day show last week. They'll be playing at Tuscaloosa, who's hosting game day Saturday, and all they go is to Vanderbilt here. Vanderbilt has already beaten Kentucky at home, has already beaten Tennessee at home, and an improved Texas team beat them in a tough game on Saturday. And they're catching 9. This was at 9.5 overnight. It's at 9 right now at Bet Rivers. I love Auburn. I still think they're the best team in the country. But the SEC, even at home, it's a gauntlet like none we've seen before. I think they defend a little bit better than Alabama. I think Alabama is really, really good. They're very close. Florida certainly showed you that they can play with them as well. But damn it, Vandy needs this thing way, way more. And something about that Auburn and Alabama. Next couple of games, these couple of weeks in this basketball version of the Iron Bowl, they're kind of looking ahead a little bit. Take the Vanderbilt Commodores in this spot. I know Auburn's kind of reeling a little bit, a little bruised up after it. Don't give them their best shot. I understand, but Vandy at home, just too big of a number here. I'm taking Vandy +9.
Yeah, backtracking just a little bit, Jimmy, I wanted to point out the guy that I was thinking about. I said Loyola of Chicago, that 2018 Final Four team for Loyola. The big man was Cameron Krutwig, and that's who I was confusing Avila with. But getting back now to the game at hand, Auburn still number 1, traveling to Nashville to play Vanderbilt in this game tonight. Auburn, to me, being number 1, I see it as more of an albatross than an advantage when you go in with that number 1 designation. You're playing a Vanderbilt team that's really good at home, 12-1 at home on the season. As a small dog, they've already defeated Kentucky and Tennessee and getting some pretty healthy points here, +9. So I like what you're selling here with the Commodores at home tonight against Auburn.
All right, let's move on to Wednesday. These are projected lines, and give or take, a point or so. But let's start in the Big East. And a team that I had on Sunday, I lost this bet privately. I liked Xavier against Villanova, and Xavier just couldn't play defense once they went up 6. Catching points, went up 6 with 13 minutes to go, and Villanova scored on 8 of 9 trips. I mean, it was just shot after shot after shot. Providence, usually very, very tough place to play. I mean, that's data. There's no opinion there. They have been one of the best teams over the last 5-8 years at home. Well, Cooley's gone in his second year at Georgetown. They're not quite as good. We know about that. But Xavier here on the road, -1. They had been playing really well. Defensively, they let me down on Sunday against Villanova.
Yeah, I tell you, I talk about this from time to time, Jimmy, but there are certainly quite a few times when I primarily am betting against a team, if you will, rather than betting on the other team. And that's kind of the case here when Xavier travels to Providence tomorrow night on Wednesday. Unfortunately, Providence, they suffered a big injury early in the year. Their top player forward, Bryce Hopkins, he actually tore his ACL in January of 24. So 13 months ago, tore his ACL, only played 14 games last year, comes back this season only plays 3 before he re-injures the same knee. So it's been a tough 2 years with the knee injuries for Bryce Hopkins, and he's clearly their go-to guy, about 18 points a game, their top scorer, kind of the heart and soul of that team. And they just hadn't been the same without Bryce Hopkins. You look at the Friars' 5 conference victories this year. They've come against 4 teams. All 4 of those teams currently all sub 500 in the Big East, and they actually have a combined record, do those 4 teams that Providence defeated in conference play, of 14-51. So they hadn't beat the cream of the crop in the Big East. This Xavier team, only 6-7 in conference play to this point, but I like them. They've shown spurts. They've shown who they can be. They obviously have Zach Fremantle, one of the better players in the conference, but they've been good on the road this year. They won at Marquette. They took both UConn and St. John's to overtime on the road, so could have won those games. So they've been pretty feisty. I think Xavier -1, which is what I project this line to be at Providence, is worth a look. I think Xavier's going to win this one by, say, 3 or more points at Providence on Wednesday night.
And that's why I had them on Sunday, Paul. Their form has been really, really good. They're playing better, and they're well coached. I mean, we've seen enough of Sean Miller, back at his old school. I mean, he is a good coach, and his teams are going to improve over the course of the season. So, sometimes it could be either one. Did Villanova just get hot in that stretch where they flipped the 6-point deficit to an 8-point lead from the 13-minute mark to the 5-minute mark in the Super Bowl Sunday game? Or is it, was it just poor defense? Usually a combination of the two when you have something extreme like that. But yeah, I'm willing to go back on them tomorrow night and tail you on that one as well. Speaking of Villanova in that run, they host St. John's. We talked about. What about that win on Friday night? That's a big one, boy. I mean, down early, UConn's got the place jumping, and man, on prime time on the network TV on Fox, and they just lock you down. They're the number 1 defensive team in the Big East. They might be the best defensive team in college basketball, period. And I love watching the Garden. They really get into it and applaud, get a little extra applause when they get a defensive stop, a block shot, a shot clock violation, things like that. They love playing defense, and they are all bought in on Pitino's coaching style. Speaking of good coaches, how they improve as well. They're a dangerous, dangerous club. They've been moved up from like a 6 or 7 seed to like a 4 seed right now in some of the projections. Again, Nova, again, Xavier, over 50% from the field, 50% from three-point line, 100% from the free throw line on Sunday's win against Xavier. I just think this is a different level of defense that they're going to face tomorrow night in St. John's. So St. John's shows they're going to play home or away. So Nova, I'm looking at that run, that offensive production, that shooting, I don't think is quite sustainable, especially against a much better defensive unit. I'm going to take St. John's, even though this is an emotional win, a big win on the road against UConn, against the 2-time defending champions, even though they're not as good. But that was a big one on as a dog to win outright. I got St. John's minus a short number here, minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jimmy, off the top of my head, and I hadn't really assessed it and looked at some of the other candidates, but man, Rick Pitino has to be one of the top candidates for National Coach of the Year. I mean, this is a guy who's just working magic there at St. John's. He's done it at multiple stops, obviously, throughout his storied career. So just one of the better coaches of contemporary college basketball here in, over the last few decades. He's really done a great job. The Red Storm, they've won 10 straight games. I like this Villanova team. They really started out slow. They've gotten better. They're playing pretty well, but I can see your position. It's hard to jump off a winning horse, and St. John's is certainly riding high right now and might be another team, as we kind of start to think about March. Who are some teams that might kind of emerge from just off the pace? And St. John's certainly could rank as one of those teams to look at.
I think you make a good point, because usually coaching, at least in the pro ranks, the coaching awards go to the coaches that exceed expectations. Although I think the two front main vote getters right now will be the Iron Bowl guys, and Oates and Pearl might be the favorites there. Patino has exceeded expectations. Those teams were supposed to be really good this year. Patino in his in the Red Storm, not so much. Let's get to Georgia Tech and Stanford. Another one of these coast-to-coast trips in the ACC. Stanford, really struggled with NC State at home. Barely beaten by one in Palo Alto. Now they'll make the coast-to-coast trip to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. What a week they had. They beat a very good Louisville team. They beat Clemson in triple overtime. Second straight year. They win at Little John in Clemson in overtime. And then they were completely flat against Virginia, as Virginia blew them off the court and won by double digits on Saturday. Now they are at home laying 1 against Stanford.
Yeah, Georgia Tech, they're 3 games below 500 in the ACC at 5-8. So not exactly, one of the better teams in that conference, but they've, played well at home. They've actually won 4 of their last 5 games at home, in addition to the multi-overtime victory at Clemson that you mentioned. They most recently defeated Louisville there in Atlanta, defeated the Cardinals, then ranked number 21, 77-70 a week and a half ago. And a lot of Georgia Tech's solid recent play has been due to the shooting of sophomore guard Nathan George. He scored in double figures in their last 11 games and actually averages 20.7 points per game over their last 4. So he's really scoring. And one of the reasons for Stanford's recent dip, their top guard, their point guard, actually, Duke transfer Jalen Blakes, he has missed the Cardinals' last 3 games due to an unspecified head injury suffered at SMU back on February 1st. And Blakes is a guy who's really critical. The point guard's always going to kind of be the engine to any team, but he leads the Cardinal, or actually is second on the Cardinal in scoring at 14.6 points per game, leads them in assists at 5 assists a game, and also leads them in steals at 1.9 steals a game. So his production is across many areas, clearly been missed as Stanford has lost 2 of their last 3 games, as you mentioned, failed to cover their last 3 in his absence. My expectation for Blake's not really getting any, as is always the case, or often the case it seems like in college athletics, difficult to sometimes to get clear or fairly clear injury information. But my expectation in my handicap of this game is going to be that he's either going to miss the game since he's missed the last 3, or he's going to be playing at something less than 100%. Plus, as you mentioned, the Cardinal have to deal with the newfound travel challenges in the Atlantic Coast Conference, which is a coast-to-coast conference, a 2,400-mile flight from Palo Alto to Atlanta. So I like Georgia Tech. I like their recent form. Stanford facing some challenges, both travel and perhaps injury. I like Georgia Tech projected -1 over the Cardinal.
All right, last pick that we project tomorrow, we'll go to Fayetteville, Arkansas in the SEC. LSU has only 1 win in conference play this year, and that was against the Arkansas Razorbacks early in the season in conference play. They had a great shot to win their second conference game on Saturday, led 70-59 against Ole Miss, but got outscored 13-0 in the last 3.5 minutes. They gave up 5 offensive rebounds, did not score, 3 turnovers, 1 missed field goal, and 2 missed free throw attempts as Ole Miss gets the review and overturned where they said it was basket interference. It was clearly outside the cylinder. And Ole Miss not only wins, but wins in regulation on that 13-0 run. As much as plus 1,600 live was available at the high point in that Ole Miss comeback. So LSU, probably another soft spot for their opponent because they're kind of an exhale spot. We saw it against Alabama where they kind of went through the motions to beat LSU by 7 there, not coming close to cover. Auburn, it was very sloppy in Baton Rouge, and well, not this time because Arkansas has already lost to them. So a rare revenge spot against LSU. Arkansas just will hope that, with the team that they're supposed to beat takes care of business here. They need to because they're on the outside of the tournament right now, and they have plenty of opportunities to get quality wins, quad 1 wins in the SEC, but this would be a damaging loss if they had that one. So this one actually might be more at stake, on the other, for the reverse mode there. I like Arkansas here in a rare spot here. LSU, how are they going to respond to this? They're bad to begin with, but this is a really rough spot to try and recover from. Arkansas -9 at home in Fayetteville against LSU.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, an excellent point about Arkansas's tournament hopes. It oftentimes is as much a case of the bad losses keep you out as the good wins get you in. And this would be a crushing loss to their NCAA tournament hopes to lose at home to LSU. And I think it's natural also to expect some sort of residual effects, if you will, from the Tigers' collapse at home this past weekend, lead by 11 points with just under 3 minutes to go, lose that game, as you pointed out, to Ole Miss. That's really a very difficult loss for LSU. LSU on the road, their 5 road games in the SEC, they've lost by an average of 13 points a game. Only one of those road losses by fewer than double digits. So I think Arkansas, I'm with you here. I think they're going to win this one by double digits. I think they know the importance of this game to enhance and maintain those NCAA tournament hopes.
This could be the basketball version of what Ole Miss did. When Ole Miss got left out the football playoff, that loss to 1-7 Kentucky at home. So this would be a damaging loss at home for Arkansas as well. We do it every week. We look at the Tuesday, Wednesday cards in college basketball. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott here on the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.